The largest intent of this initiative is to continue the unionization of the home help workers. These people aren't public employees, they shouldn't be unionized, they have been, and currently they're having $6 million a year taken out in dues and agency fees that are going to the union and should be going to the developmentally disabled adults who are receiving this care. It is something they've always been able to do, currently are able to do, and will be able to do no matter what happens with this ballot initiative. Well, we don't need to do a constitutional amendment to do that. The department can do that right now if it thought that it would be beneficial. Most of these people are watching out after their own relatives. 65–70% of people are watching out after their own relatives. They don't need a directory for that. If the directory is important, the department can certainly run it, and we don't need to put providers into a union in order to have a directory. In April of 2012, the governor signed a law that made it clear that these people were not public employees and should not be unionized. Currently, that's being held up by a court, the effect of it, and what this amendment is an attempt to do is to supersede that legislation. The people said they were dismayed by the fact that $6 million a year was being taken from this program and being given to a union. The governor put a stop to it. The union's trying to get that money back. These workers were forced into a union in the first place through some shady activity from the Granholm administration. When you define public workers, that's supposed to be done by the legislature. A state doesn't have to allow public sector people to unionize. Michigan does. And the legislature was not going to create these people who are private citizens and make them into public employees. So the governor did this through a sneaky thing called an interlocal agreement, and then didn't publicize the vote, so the people voting on it didn't have any idea what was going on. Yeah, but they didn't know what was going on. Remember, these are people watching out for their own children. They view this money more as a subsidy than as an employment payment, and they certainly didn't understand that they were public employees. There was also a problem with a large number of ballots being returned for incorrect addresses. So of the 40,000 people who were affected by this, only about 6,000 of them voted, and a lot of them had been made some false promises by the union. That is a possibility. It never should have been put in place in the first place. The government agency that's involved with managing public sector unions should never have said this was a public sector union. But it puts the onus on a bunch of people who have disabled people living in their home to go out and collect 12,000 to 15,000 signatures and then fight a union with $30-something million in the bank in order to try and decertify. And that's an awful large burden to put on people who have already been burdened in life. The union can make that claim. There's no real proof of it. What happened was these people got a salary bump when there was a minimum wage hike. Secondly, we don't judge embezzlers on how well they invest. The union should never have had the money in the first place because these people aren't public employees and therefore should not be forced to support a union that they may or may not want anything to do with. So there's some difficulty in the union's claim that they got these people some extra benefits. And while we're talking about benefits, this ballot initiative makes it very clear that these people are not public employees aside of being able to be unionized. They are not to get any other benefits that other state employees would get. All those things can be done without unionization. If they were interested in that, they could just ask for legislation that does all of those things. The agency can already and does do all of those things. So that's somewhat of a smokescreen. The reason why this thing's on the ballot is because the unions want the money. This is a fig leaf that they are giving to the public in order to allow them to get that money.